We are activating your unique self-discovery one show at a time. The Orchard of Wisdom Self-Discovery podcast are at your fingertips, just waiting to inspire and invite you in discovering just how awesome you really are and how to navigate through life in joy, enrichment, personal abundance, in mind, body, spirit, heart, and soul. All the people we bring you are here to serve you on your journey of life. Do enjoy our next show. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of An Author's Kiss right here on selfdiscoverymedia.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy, and my wonderful guest today is Stacy Lee. She is an author. One of her titles, her latest book, is Never in a Billion. Forget about millions, billions. We're talking big here. But she's also an author of The 100th Time Round, Future Plans, and 10% of My Heart. And we're going to be talking about all of those books today. In her latest book, she talks about historical fiction. It's a series on a beautiful and enchanting New England beach of York in Maine. It's Nubble Light series. It's set in New England. Sorry, that repeated itself there. Each of the novels are separate stories that appeal to the readers of all ages, especially women. Young adults and seniors have confessed to falling in love with the characters that they feel are like friends, and they're very quick reads, which makes it nice and easy and relaxing for you at the end of the day. It has a female character in it who has personal obstacles to overcome. She learns about the importance of second chances, which we all need, while others are challenged with love without hesitation. In each story, someone returns to their hometown. Somewhere the lesson is learned, they learn from the experience of the others, other characters, and the action toggles between multiple time periods, mainly the 1940s, 50s, 60s, and present day. It's written like a movie, and the book offers entertaining, unique twists and in a warm and fuzzy Hallmark type way. I like that. We all need that. There's so much going on in the world right now that we need something that just takes us away into a beautiful fantasy land where we can get lost in and imagine ourselves as being the main character, right? Welcome to the show, Stacy.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. Um, I Barbara Cartland, that was it. When I was 14, the other day I was trying to remember her name and I couldn't, and it suddenly came to me. I was 14 and she wrote all these soppy love stories. And I was just, 13, 12, 13, 14, and just, entranced with it because we all love the idea of romance, don't we? But also a bit of discovery of self through those romances. And romance doesn't always have to be with a guy. The romance could be of the place that you're in, the discovery you make of self. It's kind of romancing yourself through being romanced by what's on the
Absolutely.
exterior. So, why did you choose this particular genre? What drew you to this way of telling a story?
I suppose I write my books the way that I like to
Mhm.
read.
Yes.
So these are the type of books that I would choose to read, that I do choose to read. And I feel just really deeply connected to these stories.
We do need escapism, but at the same time, I think that why we read these things, although they may be escapism and sometimes don't relate to our own lives in any way, I always feel we learn something about ourselves in reading these books.
Yes.
Maybe, why am I drawn to this so much? Why is this particular scene worrying me? Why am I upset over here? And it's kind of stop and pause at that moment. I reflect because there's clearly something going on in your own life that's mirroring the story.
I feel the same way as a reader. I've been doing a lot more reading than I have been this summer, and I feel the same way. You start to make connections, and that's sort of what draws you in.
Mm,
You obviously want to know what's going to happen in the story, but there's always that personal experience that's kind of in the back, the
mm,
buzzing in your head while you read. So it
yeah.
makes it fun.
I find that I think we see things differently after we've read a book like that because
Yeah.
the romance, that's why I say it's not just about romancing between two people. It's if the whole stage, so to speak, has to be a romance. And I think that when you put a book down like that, you begin to pay attention to what's around you, right? And romanticize it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I feel that way when I write too.
Mm,
You start to I just listen. I listen more, especially now that I'm in the groove with writing
mhm,
these books. I'm always listening and people watching, and then it's the same when I do read. Um, yeah, no, I completely agree. I think that's what makes it so magical.
mhm. Do you have a certain discipline in, do you know what you're going to write? Does the character come to you? Or are you one of these people that the fingers hit the keyboard and off you go?
A little bit of both. I like now that I have the momentum going with this series. By the fourth book, the main characters from the first three books are now friends in the fourth book. So there's a
Mm,
little bit of that kind of spontaneous um, writing, but I start with a plan. I have a pretty solid outline going into it. I have the basic plot down, character arc, character development, that sort of thing. But when I'm writing my first draft, that can all change. I'll
yes.
be driving or I'll be in the shower and I'll be like, oh my gosh, that no, this is what's happening. This is what's happening. And I shock myself. So then I go back and I make it so it works. But the plot twists, those are my favorite
Hmm.
to write for
My brother is a professional writer and has been for God knows how many years, over 50. And, it always amazes me when he's very disciplined. He's also, was a professor, so he has quite a lot of structure there. But it reminds me many, many years ago, I was staying with him in London and he was writing this really intriguing book. Um, and he'd got the character into a pit. And it took him a week to write the character out of the pit.
Oh yeah.
Have you ever had those type of situations?
Very recently, I have in my fourth book, the main character, she has to choose between two guys. And I started out not knowing who she would pick. And then I got to the part where it was time for Tessa to, make this work out. And I had no idea what was even best for her. I mean, my friends had to hear about it, my family had to hear about it. I ran it by a therapist a couple times because I wanted what was best for her
Mm,
as a character. And my readers have grown to trust me.
mm,
My books end happy, and I didn't want to let anybody down,
right.
but I wanted what was best for Tessa Walker. So
So it wasn't like, they got married and lived happily ever after. You want people to know it was the right choice and they
mhm.
are the right people to weather the storms of life together.
Yes, and I think my readers appreciate that. I'm getting some good feedback from the fourth book, and they appreciate the choices that the character made and why she made them. And it might not necessarily be the choice that someone might make for themselves or the choice that I would make for myself even, but it was what was right for her.
Right. Obviously, you're writing about different characters and obviously agonizing what's good for them. How reflective of that is of your own choices in life, of
Oh
on
gosh.
your life, not the
Yeah.
character's life.
That's been, I think, one of the biggest challenges has been separating, I mean,
Mm,
building off life experience, right?
yes.
Like writing what I know. But now that I'm going into the fifth book, just being able to sort of open my mindset a little bit. Um, the first book, I used a lot of my own personal experiences and growth. The first two books, there's an ex-boyfriend that comes back
Hmm.
here and there. And I mean, I have ex-boyfriends, so I
Hmm.
wasn't writing about my ex-boyfriend, but I know what it's like to have my heart broken. I
Hmm.
know what it's like to think I'm going to be with one person and then have that all come crashing down.
Right.
By the time I got to the fourth book, it's more of kind of just, I did a lot of what ifs.
Hmm.
I was a classroom teacher for 15 years and I was really close with my students. And my first year teaching, I actually asked the principal if I could take one of them home for Thanksgiving because my heart was just broken for this student. So in the fourth book, the guidance counselor has been nominated for guardianship over a first grader. So that was just a lot of what ifs.
Mm,
Like, what if this happened? And then, oh, what if, what if she had to make this decision? And it's more now I've kind of moved away from writing about only what I know to opening up my eyes to the rest of the world and what other people have experienced so that I can have something for everybody.
right. In a lot of ways, you have the benefit of hindsight.
Yes.
So when you have that and you're writing forward, you've had the hindsight that gives you the basis of why which choice would be better, or how something, because when you're in the moment, you don't always know how to follow through or carry something through. But in hindsight, you know how to do that. So that makes it easier for you to write about letting it follow through.
Yes, no, exactly. And getting that first draft out, that's the biggest piece for me. I need to spend a lot of time. I need a lot of time to myself when I'm writing my first draft. I can do the brainstorming, at the beach
Yeah.
or here and there. And I can do the editing. Like I'll bring my computer to the gym when the kids are working out and I'll have
Mm.
my headphones in and I'll be working. But that first draft, I mean, I feel like it's so important because one distraction and the whole story could be different.
Yes. I marvel at the fact that you can go and do that amongst the noise, but if you have been doing it, you said you set the stage.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's kind of you've got that flow and the rhythm of what it's going to be. So then you can do it anyway. I've just written my memoir, and it was like, no, nobody talk to me, leave me alone. For me, I was going to write it this way. And then when the finger started hitting the keyboard, it wrote that way.
Yes.
And now it's written, and I was starting to edit. And then I had a friend here for the weekend, and little memory conversations came up. That should be in there. So, do you find that even once you've written it, that there's something, oh, that could be better, or maybe I should insert this? Or is it
Yes.
done or done?
And I tell you, it happens when I'm driving and when I'm in the
Yeah,
shower.
yes. Well, when
And
you're
I was,
driving, you can press record on your phone, but when you're in
yes.
the shower,
It's more like when I was writing the second book, there's a twist at the end of the second book. And I was in the shower and I had to stop and I'd be like, oh my gosh. It was like I was reading the book and I
mm,
read the twist.
yeah.
It just popped into my head and I said, okay, that's what's happening in this book. And I went back to the drawing board and made it happen. But that's, I think, my favorite part of this
Mm,
whole thing is that, you do have, in a way, control
mm,
over this world. And I've created these characters that feel like real people to my readers. And they love when they're reading a book and the characters from the previous book, they pop in, they
uh-huh,
say, oh, I feel like I saw my old friends. And
mhm,
it's just that to me is the biggest compliment when they feel like they're seeing their friends in these stories. But I am very careful with them. It's almost like I'm protective of them. Like if somebody will say, oh, in the second book I wish I knew a little bit more about what happened to this character, and I said, oh, well, maybe she'll come back, but I think she might be good.
yeah.
I think she's good. Like she's all set. Like I'll let you know if she needs anything.
Well, if they've connected with that character, it's obviously a
Yes.
reflection of where they want to be in life. And by the way, water is a conduit. So when epiphanies come while you're in the shower, that
Okay.
is that conduit of,
Good to know.
aligning you, right? So, and if you ever get stuck, go and take a long shower.
Yes. Yeah.
There's always that.
There's
You know,
always
I'm,
that. Yeah.
I'm a big Westworld fan. The show, and it was very very interesting in this second part series that's just shown because it's very kind of dark and twisted, but she now is the writer of these stories. To find out that she's the writer of everybody's story, and it's like it does bring about a certain responsibility when you're writing the characters. Yes, it's just fictional, it's just a book people are going to read and put down, but you're also inserting something into people's minds. And as you said, you want to leave people uplifted, but there's I mean, how dark will you go? Because people have shades in life and there's
Yeah.
got to be some darkness, but how dark do you allow yourself to go in a book? And does it then grab you and want to pull you down further?
No, that's a very good question. There are definitely situations in my books that they're challenges that the characters have. There's a scene in one of my books about a frat party where someone spikes her drink,
Mm,
and her kind of experience with that. And there's also in one of my books a kidnapping,
mm,
and it's as a mom, it was tough. Um, but I feel like I'll go as dark as I need to go to do the story justice.
yeah.
If it pertains to the plot and the growth of my characters, and if it helps me to connect the reader to my characters so that they can appreciate the story like it's meant to be appreciated, then I'll go there. I'm really careful though to not just do it for
For
the
the
sake
sake of
of
it. Yeah.
having
Yeah.
it's
It,
everything in my stories are very intentional.
yeah. Yeah. And I mean, if everybody has different shades in life, not everybody has to go to the darkness, but there's always different shades in life. And if
Yes.
you're representing the shades of life, um, as the journey that anybody could go through, and that's what people want, and this is why people love either sequels or a continuous from a same author, is because they know they can always see themselves in there, or they can see a solution to their own lives through the characters, right?
Yes.
Which is
A lot,
always important.
yes. A lot of reflection, self-discovery, self-growth.
Mm,
I had a man review um my second book on just kind of, I think it was on Readsy or something, and my book was put into this almost like this study where people were allowed to read like 12 pages of it, and he wasn't even interested in women's fiction, but he said I hated the main character, hated her. And it was the second book, and I thought about it and I was like, okay, well, he read the first 12 pages. Like,
mm,
the character had to start somewhere,
yes.
and she can't start perfectly happy, or
What would be the
there's no
story?
story there.
Yes, yeah.
She started during a really selfish time in her life where she wasn't nice to people and she cared more about her things than she cared about her daughter.
Mm.
But that's where she was at that point on page 12. So I kind of laughed about it. I
But
was like,
also, I mean, you can see the reflection of why he would hate her. If she's
yeah.
selfish and at the sacrifice of her daughter,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously this is a reflection of something in his life. Everything is always a reflection.
True.
But
Yeah,
it is okay. Then don't you want to know how she changes from that?
exactly.
Right? Because
Exactly.
I mean, every single one of us at some point go selfish. Sometimes it's because of our own insecurity or our own lack of worth, needing attention or needing to be above everything. And sometimes it's in our discovery of healing where we have to go selfish to heal ourselves so we can be more abundant for other people. It's just a question of what kind of selfishness.
Exactly. Yeah. And that happened to my character in my fourth book that I was telling you about, Tessa, where she just, when we get to that part where she's now taken care of this boy for 6 years and she lost her 20s altogether, she has nothing left to give. And it's not so much that she's choosing to be selfish, it's that she feels like she's drowning.
Mm,
And when you feel like that and you feel like there's no way out, you tend to not be able to give of yourself or even take care of yourself because
yeah,
you're giving and
yeah.
caring for other people.
And that
There's
and,
not
th- and
much
that's
left.
what really really important for people in their own lives is to, if you are burnt out or there's nothing left to give because you've allowed yourself to be emptied, and you have responsibilities around you, that's why you call other people. Please
Yep.
come and help me with this responsibility while I find my way back to my own personal abundance, because then my cup can run over. But if I'm not refortifying, what have I got to give? And I think a lesson in that itself for people. Are you giving too much at the expense of yourself? And
Right.
that, for mothers especially, is
Mhm.
big, because where is the balance? And if you don't have the balance, illness sets in, depression sets in, disconnection with your spouse sets in, even your children, but disconnection from yourself.
Yeah.
So, and so, yeah, a little selfishness sometimes is needed. It's just a question of making sure everybody else is all right while you're being selfish.
I love that analogy. Like when you sit on an airplane and they say,
Yes.
the masks are going to
Yeah.
come down, put it on yourself before you
Yeah.
put it on somebody else. I use that all the time.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
because it's a very simple one. I mean, how we see that. I've been doing this 10 years. We get a lot of shows on people who have been the caregivers automatically in their life with anything that they've done. And every single one of them at some point has bottomed out. And it's because they just gave without being replenished. And then the resentment set in. And it's like, I'm gasping for air here. Well, the oxygen mask was in front of you all the time, but you gave it to everyone else. Now
Yeah.
you're passing out. You can't help anyone else.
You can't help anybody else if you can't breathe.
Nope, exactly. And like just sometimes it's in life, take a breath,
Yeah.
pause, take a breath, I mean, you've written this like a movie. Is this because you would like to see the books go into movie format?
Yep. Yeah. So I've written the screenplay for the first book.
Hmm.
I've been working with a friend that I met through networking. He owns a company called Books Cribs,
Hmm.
and he helps writers adapt their books into movies.
Oh, nice.
He's
Very nice.
absolutely, he's wonderful. And he sat with me once a week on Zoom for an entire summer teaching me how to write a screenplay because the 100th time around scored high on this program that he uses to analyze whether the book would make a good movie. So he's representing me, and he's put my material in front of a couple of producers and directors, and I've pitched my first 5 book ideas, um, and it sounds like it might be a really good TV series.
Yeah. I mean, people, you had kind of you look at the popularity of Sex in the City, and you've got a lot of shows out there where it's people of in their own everyday lives, have struggled with relationships, struggled with knowing who they are, struggled, and then by the third or fourth season, they found themselves, and so people are on to the next one. But
Yeah,
it is the reason why they're so popular is because it does mirror people's lives, and but it also gives them almost like a manual in their own lives of what to do if they're feeling that way. Oh God, I relate to that. I feel like that. What did they do to get out of it? Right. And it's something they can apply to themselves. And that's why they're so popular.
yeah, I love that. Yeah, in my stories, the action toggles between different decades also.
Mm-hmm.
So I really enjoyed the show This Is Us, and
Yes.
and I kind of see it how it could work in that similar format, with just different different time frames during like the way they did the flashbacks. I really enjoyed that.
And of course, writing about the different decades, it's what's going on in that decade that has a direct impact on a person and their choices in life. And I did a show this week where we were talking about actually, you know, the the um, the racism, but also the categorization of, when you sign, you're Hispanic, you're this, you're that, reason behind it, how it's used, and all of that. And if you look at it, are you single? Have you been married before? Do you have children? And it's all of that categorization. And so when you're writing in different decades, it's different type of categorization in each decade, isn't it? Of a different representation of a woman
Yes,
from one decade to another.
absolutely. And the neat part, about the books is, without giving anything away, the characters from the first book that you do come to know and really appreciate because of the flashback to the 1940s, they're able to help the younger characters,
Yes.
when they show up again in the next books. And
So
and
the
I really like
40s
that
will be
too.
helping somebody maybe in the 60s book, but obviously not the present book. But is it the present book is the flashback to something that was written
Right.
or something that was shared?
So,
Because
so
obviously they're not going
yeah.
to be around.
Well,
Or maybe they are.
I don't want to give too much away, but
I
so
want to see
like
where the Fred is.
yeah, yeah. So one book will toggle between like 2001 present day and 1940. And then the second book, same thing, present day and the late 60s. And then the third book will be present day to the late 50s. And you actually see the characters at different ages
Mm,
because of it's almost like you have a time machine and you're popping into their lives during different points of their lives, but they journal. So that's one way they help them.
mm,
But it's neat. I've always enjoyed talking to people who have more life experience than I
yeah.
do.
Yes.
When I started out as a teacher, I was in my very early 20s, and most of my friends were in their 50s and 60s. And I always enjoyed picking their brains.
Hmm.
Same thing with like when my grandmother was alive. Like,
Hmm.
just, I feel like they've lived a lot longer than me, so why not?
Yes. I have two children that, kind of love the different ages because of what they've learned from it. And shocks to them now because my son is turning 38. He has now become kind of the mentor to, because he owns a restaurant, to the young people that other people were to him. So he's stepped into a different thing now, but understands the impact that we have as elders, right? And when you can see what elders have gone through and you see how they've gone through it, more importantly, who they are today because of it,
Hmm.
I say inspiration begets invitation. And when you're inspired by that, it invites you to look at your own journey in a totally different way.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely.
So I'm glad that you aren't just keeping it all around the same age and what I call bubble gumming it, that you're giving it some depth and all the different wonderful shades of life that go back. And because we see this so often where it's just, well, that's only for the 20s, that's only for the 30s. In fact, there was back in the 90s, um, the 30s, the show of people only in their 30s, right? So it's nice to see the fact that you're bringing all of these different age groups in,
Oh yeah.
which is wonderful.
I have readers. I have my books have been rated sort of like a 16 and older with adult supervision type thing. But I have readers in high school, um, oh my gosh, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, all the way to 80s.
Hmm.
And they can't wait for my next book.
Right. Neat. That's really good.
It's a
So,
lot of fun.
oh,
Yeah.
yes, yes. I mean, but it's also hearing the different feedback. Like a 20-year-old is going to give you this feedback, an 8-year-old is going to give you that feedback. And do you always find it quite fascinating, the different perspectives that people have over the books? Do any of them
Yes.
surprise you? Or, oh no,
Yes.
that was intended.
Yes, definitely. It's funny because some of the readers, and actually for my fourth book, I have a friend in his 20s, and he helped me with some of the dating terminology because
Yes.
it's not. I'm in my like early 40s, and
Okay, I'm in 68, darling. So yes, yeah.
and I can't keep up. I mean, he explained it all to me. They don't date, they talk. And then when they're official, they're a thing. So this has been very helpful as a mom too of kids that are
Yes.
progressing towards their teenage years. But I tried to incorporate that into book four
Yeah. Now that's a very
because
good idea. It's
yeah,
the emoji talk nowadays. It's just
yeah,
like even LOL. What was that? And they have that
right.
TV show right now, Granny versus Kid, and and
Oh,
it's
I've
funny
never seen
because
that.
they um it's a quiz game. How much do each one of them know? And it's apparently really funny because kids anything beyond the last 10 years don't know anything, and the grandma's, what's TikTok? you know
Oh, I'll have to
so
check that out.
kind of really funny in that way because the thing is what we didn't have, things didn't go so fast
Yes.
because we had TV, yes, but um it was only just color. We didn't have, all of the massive stations, and we would still go to the movie house, we'd still go to concerts, things like this. And we did this unique thing when we went out to eat, we talked to each other.
Yes.
Right. So now you've got everybody texting each other, even at the same table, and you've got so many abbreviations of life that I don't relate to because I like the depth of life, and it's we just didn't have the things moving as fast. But your kids today, in 5 years from now, it's going to be radically different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm not sure it's going in the right way. So
Mm-hmm.
having a book that teenagers are willing to read, where it gives the shade and the shadows and the depth and the questionings and things that happen and things that are good, and it's something that they can look at instead of being in what I call the emoji land, where everything is abbreviated. They can understand you're going to get more out of life if you're willing to go into depth.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And life experience.
Yeah.
Just to experience some of these things, and it's interesting because I'll talk to like an aunt who, one of my aunts is in her late 70s, and she'll talk about dating, and how or like another one of my aunts explained to me how what it was like when she met my uncle in the 50s, and it's all the same. It's all about connection,
It's
right?
just different scenery.
Right. It's
Yeah.
and it's explained in different ways,
Yeah.
it with different lingo,
Hmm.
but call it what you want, it's human connection.
Yes.
and
We're
and that's
all
kind
looking
of
to be
what.
loved and have
Mhm.
someone to love. That is
Right,
fundamentally what we want. We don't want someone to complete us,
right.
because we should come completed within ourselves through a relationship. There is you, there is them, and then there is the us. And the
Yeah.
us is only going to be as strong as the you and them individually, right? But if you're going into a relationship to complete me, then you're not bringing to the relationship your whole self. What we want in a relationship is complementary. We want to complement each other so that we can grow individually, but then grow as a couple because we complement each other. And I think this word, he completes me, leave that one out. Complete yourself
Yeah.
first.
Sharing choir. Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. And it's a great lesson, especially I have an 11-year-old daughter who's almost 12 and a 14-year-old son who's almost 15. And these are things that I've just been really trying to just it's a point I've been really trying to drive home with them is, you need to love yourself first,
Yes.
and you need to know who you are before you can bring that to the table.
I always call those, yes, because I had three of them, the exorcist's time where their heads just go spinning around. Who are you?
That's real.
Because,
That's real. Yeah.
they're sweet, wonderful little kids one moment, and the next moment is like, what? And they've got to go through that.
Yeah.
They've got to go through that. But, and what you will find is they even may go off the rails, but if they have been firmly rooted in their upbringing, if they know where their roots are, they know where that grounding is, even if they do fall off, they'll find their way back to the roots. So, and we, when they're still with us, we can go to them. That was a stupid move, but I still love you. And
Right.
help them, help them get back on track. And you want to prepare them, quite honestly, to make stupid moves out there without you and be
Yeah.
able to bounce back from it. Right. So it's a tough time period. The teenager won't go through it. I have gray hairs with my children's name on it.
I was a horrible eighth grader, my poor mother and father, but I'm great now. So.
Exactly, exactly. And it's like, it's even like saying to the kids, look, don't think I didn't do this.
Yeah.
I did do this, but I remember what the core importance was. And as long as you've always got that core compass, you've always got a way home.
Mhm.
And that's important for them to learn and for any of us to learn. Because it doesn't matter how old we are in life. We get sucked into something. Somebody persuades us to do something. Somebody fools us or betrays our trust. And we can come off the rails at any time. But if we have that core compass to come back to, that core truth of who we are, why we are, and that connection to whatever you believe in,
Yeah.
we will always find our way back to ourselves. But it's easy to get pushed off the rails.
It
But
really
you
is.
know, it's how you get back on that counts,
Hmm.
right?
No, I completely agree. I love that. It's
So
really
the which order do the books go in? I'm going to put my
good. Okay.
glasses on for this so that I can actually see the titles here. So the first book is,
I have them here. Do you want me
oh
to?
yes, yes, show them.
So
And
the
for
first
people who are
book,
listening, we're
yeah.
so yep.
So the first book it's titled The 100th Time Around,
Hmm.
and this is book one. My first book.
Your
Uh,
baby.
yes. Then I wrote Future Plans. So this is book two, Future Plans.
And
And
what era was that one, first one based in?
the first one toggles between present day 2001 and 1940.
Okay. And the next one?
And the next one is a completely different story. So it doesn't continue. It's not a
Hmm.
continuation. It stands alone. So in this story, you meet the first story, you meet Cassidy.
Hmm.
She's the main character. In the second story, you meet Hazel. And this story toggles between present day 2006 and 19 the late 60s, early
Hmm.
70s.
Future plans, right?
Yes. Future plans. And then the third book is titled Never in a Billion.
Right.
And we meet Maggie in Never in a Billion. So this story stands alone also with characters from the first two books popping in various ways.
Mm-hmm.
And this book toggles between present day, roughly around 2006 and the late 50s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then 10% of My Heart, we meet Tessa. And the three characters from books one through three come back here as
Mm-hmm.
well. And now they are friends, along with Tessa. And this only goes back as far as I think it's 1999. It doesn't go any earlier than that. Um, but the characters that are in the past in the first three books do show up here as well.
So
So
you can
that's
read
fun.
any of the first three books in any order.
Yes,
They stand alone, but the fourth book you recommend they've read the other three first so they can understand the other three characters'
exactly.
place in it.
Yep. And I have readers that will disagree with me when I say that. They say you have to read them in order. And I'm like that too. If I watch a
Uh,
show, I have to see every episode in order. So I understand, but you won't you will the plot you won't sacrifice the plot
right.
by reading one, two, or three in any different order. But that fourth one, I
Yes.
definitely recommend reading the other three first.
So that you actually get to know what these characters are. And you can recognize them and see the importance of why they're in that book.
Yes.
Right. And the fifth book is going to be totally different.
So the fifth book, it's titled Made for Summer, MAID,
Mm-hmm.
and that story does connect. So in this story, in the 100th time around, Sean Anderson is one of the main characters, and he's an aspiring writer in this story. He has writer's block, and he just really wants to write a book. And then by the third book, Never in a Billion, he has a podcast for writers. And by the fifth book, um, his he has now the idea is Sean has actually written these books.
Mm-hmm.
So in the book, Sean is the writer of these books. And by the fifth book, his books are being turned into a movie.
Right.
So he
And
has
this is a reflection of you.
it's very interesting, but the way he does it is he writes his stories based on his friends that he's met, but his friends are my characters. So when the book is being turned into a movie on the beach in Maine, the one of the main characters sort of falls for one of the actors. Um, so that's kind of what's going on in the fifth book, but a lot of it is still up here.
Now, it kind of subclaimed that, kind of a Hallmark type thing. I mean, as far as pitching this as TV series, is it being pitched to Hallmark?
In a way,
Hmm.
yes. So
Which have made a great deal here in Vancouver Island, where I live. An
oh,
awful lot of the
okay.
Hallmark movies are made here.
Yeah, so the director that I pitched the idea to, he does have connections with Hallmark and Lifetime.
Hmm.
Um, and then Alan, the gentleman that I work with, he he networks in that same sort of platform. So um, yeah, it's going in the right direction.
Yes, yes, just need a little
Slow,
gust of
slow
wind.
and steady.
Yep, yep, yep. Deep rooted, right? Making
Yeah.
sure it's deep rooted and along the way. You were a teacher. Did you leave teaching to write the books, or did you do both for a while?
So I enjoyed my teaching career. It was amazing. I when I first went into college, I wanted to be a writer. And my parents, who were paying for it, they
Hmm.
said, maybe maybe not major in creative writing. So there was an internship opportunity and I got into education and that, it kind of like launched me from,
Yes.
my parents' house and
Hmm.
health insurance, and it was amazing. I loved working with kids. I loved teaching writing.
Hmm.
At one point, I was teaching only writing and social studies to fourth graders, and it was incredible. I actually stopped teaching to work at my church at the time. So I did that, and then I started working for my dad too for a little while. He's an estate planning attorney, and I
Hmm.
was his event planner,
Hmm.
and that was nice just to kind of be more with my family, and my friends were working with me, um, and then I actually started writing during COVID.
Ah, so really, it's kind of fairly recent that all these books have been churned
Oh
out.
yeah.
Oh my
Yep. I've
God.
been I think I think I published my first book a year and a half ago.
Wow. And
Yep.
and you've done four with the fifth one on the way. Then
Hmm.
my brother can write like that. He can write 2 books a year. It's he'll sit down and he actually did take a hiatus. He said, I'm just not going to write for a few months. And but otherwise he can easily do 2 books a year and just churn them out. And sometimes they're in a sequel to something, and sometimes they'll stand alone. Um, but he's very disciplined and when he gets there to write, but he doesn't have anything else on his plate. So, it's okay for him. When you've got children and things like that, how do you carve out, okay, kids, this is my time. I'm writing at this time. How do you manage that? Because, people, how do you do it with kids running around and all the
Hmm.
demands that they have?
No, that's a great question. I've got it down. I think I cracked the code, and it's asking for help.
Yes, yes.
I'm very blessed with family and my husband, and right now with the kids, it's more driving them.
Yeah.
Um,
Chauffeur. I
yeah,
remember the chauffeur
yeah.
days. Yes.
I said I'm an Uber. Uh, is what
Yes,
I am.
because you see the age difference there. I say chauffeur, you say Uber.
I'm an
Uber
Uber.
wasn't
I'm not
around
even,
when
I
my
used
kids
to
were
say, my
younger.
mom used to say she was a taxi. I'm an Uber. I've got snacks in my car. I got
Yeah,
water.
yeah.
I tell them to give me a 5-star rating when they get out. um, but no, so what I do is I'm learning to structure it so that during very busy times, the summer is not a good time for me to be writing a book.
Right.
But what I can do is brainstorm and
Yes,
pre-write and
yes,
go to the beach
yes.
and brainstorm and
Download
pre-write, yeah,
ideas.
and just
Yes,
be inspired and
yes.
take notes. And then I'll make a big web on this program I have, all my ideas, and I can do that on the go too. Like I said, the gym, I put my noise canceling headphones in, and I'll get like an hour here and an hour there. Um, and then when it comes to writing the first draft, though, I
Yeah,
need like 4 hours at a time.
yeah.
And that can look a couple of different ways depending on the time of year and what's going on with everybody and my husband's job and
Mm,
my parents and their work, and um but it can look like me locking myself up here. This is my home office, and just asking other people to help me with like the driving,
yeah.
and my
Yeah, yeah.
son can
The
Uber.
muse is here right now. I've
Yeah.
got to get it down. Yeah.
Yeah.
I took August off. did no shows, which is rare for me. Um, and I thought the only way I'm going to get this book done is not doing shows, because I can do anything from 4 to 8 a week, so it's time consuming. I took 1 week to have with my kids, my family, and my
Mhm.
grandson, and then for 3 weeks I just shut myself down and wrote it. So I've got, it's out. I'm on the third edit, and other things have come to mind. I need to add this, or I need to do that, and then I have to format it because I've written it more. It's articles, articling my self-discovery, not chapters. So it's not
Okay.
important that they have the storyline there. It is just flashbacks of my life because people ask for my memoir. But the more daunting thing is, I think, when you're writing fiction, you can go places that
Hmm.
when you're writing your memoirs, do I want to go there? Do I
That's
want
gotta
to
be tough.
reveal that?
That
Maybe
that has
not.
to be tough because I mean I've had people ask me, did that really happen to you? And it's like it's fiction, no.
Yeah.
But it has to be hard when it's not
Yeah,
fiction.
no, it's a different ball game altogether. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Going back to the fourth graders, fourth, fifth, and sixth graders are so filled with imagination, and they are so creative at that point. And the ideas are just pouring out of them. As a writer, you weren't writing at that time, but did you find that exuberance of storytelling with the kids really
Absolutely.
exciting?
That was my favorite part, the brainstorming
Mm,
process. And I would say to them, just to get them that automaticity of
yeah.
get the idea out of your brain.
Yes.
Don't worry about spelling it right.
Yes.
Don't and you have 10 minutes, go brainstorm, and then you have the kids that are just writing, and then you have the kids that are like, what? Like write words. It doesn't, and just to get them to be able to almost get out of their own way.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
because so often, I mean, kids are looking to give you now like whatever you want to hear. Like what's
Right.
the right.
Just whatever's going to give me approval.
Yes,
Yeah.
give me approval, give me validation. and
Mm,
and I think that's what happened with me when I was in elementary school. I think second grade, I had a teacher who wouldn't let me stop coming up with my ideas just because of the grammar and the punctuation and
yeah.
the spelling. And she actually, um, I spoke the story. It was like a dictation kind of
Mm,
thing, and she wrote it down for me. And it was just there weren't any rules. Nothing was right. Nothing was wrong.
right.
Ideas, my ideas were my ideas, and they
Yeah.
were they were acceptable because they were my ideas. And that's what I would tell my students. There's no right or wrong.
Yeah. It's just, I've been a storyteller all my life. One thing came up in the book is I was at boarding school and I was dormitory monitor, and the dormitory is where we slept. And the kids wouldn't go to sleep unless I told them a story. But if I
Oh,
told them a story, I got told off for speaking after dark and have to go downstairs and write 200 lines. So I'd write 100 of them in the daytime because I knew I was going to do that at night, because they wouldn't go to sleep or calm down unless I told them a story. So I've always been a storyteller, but not a story writer, because A, I have dyslexia and I can't spell nothing. So thank God for Grammarly, and I did everything on, Microsoft Word, etc. And they came up with the editing, the readability, the this, the that, etc. And it just made it so much easier and less intimidating for me to do. But writing it earlier, I think what did stop me was the fact my brother's a professional writer.
right.
So, but I was an article writer. I was a blog writer. So, for me, that was easy. But to put anything else, and I think that we do get blocked. But having a teacher that goes, just let it out, it doesn't have to be perfect, is such permission for us to step into our creativity. What artist paints Picasso right from the word go? Everything is a learning curve, but the most important thing is don't stifle the creativity.
Absolutely. Yep. And it's funny because you'll hear artists say, well, an art teacher, should never say. When I was a teacher, I was taught in school when the kindergartner runs up to you with a picture, you don't say, what is that?
Yeah,
You say, tell me about that.
yes,
It's
exactly.
because you don't want to shut down their
No.
creativity. But
Why don't you
that
see
was
what I've done? Yes, yeah.
right. Like, oh, what is it? No, you say, tell me about it. But they don't teach you that when
No,
it comes to teaching writing to
no,
children.
no.
They want you to just immediately
It's
pick it
spelling.
apart.
grammar, the
spelling, it's the
pronunciation, and
grammar,
everything else. Yeah.
the main idea. And I actually got kind of tired of it.
Yes.
Towards the end of my career, I couldn't teach what I wanted to teach
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
It was
Exactly.
all to the test, well, they're getting tested on this.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, yeah,
So,
and this is, I have a whole another series, Raising Our Gifted Children, and one of the books that is coming out actually is, no, yeah, Raising Our Gifted Children. The book that's going to be coming out, which is a collaborative book, is our Forgotten Children series, and it is, based in education, the foster system, the lack of nurturing or support as a family unit, just the environment that we bring our children up. And the reason why we have really screwed up adults is because, the foundation of which they grow up in. And there's so much emphasis on academic, and they take away, what's the first thing they cut in school? They cut the arts, they cut the music, they cut the sports. And that is where their creativity can grow. And that's where they can grow as a human being and stretch themselves. And not everything in life is a full stop or a comma, where there's so
mhm.
much more to it, and you can actually paint outside of the lines.
Right,
We're
right.
not doing them a service that way.
Yeah, we stopped teaching cursive 5 years before I stopped teaching. My children can't read cursive.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just times change and there's
Yeah.
different priorities, but I feel like that imagination though, it's so important.
Yes. Always say that to look at yourself as a blank canvas and you are the paintbrush. There is no right and wrong picture. It's just the picture of your inner perception. Let it
Mhm.
out. And whether you write, whether you art, whether you sew, whatever you do, allow your own beautiful creativity to come through it. And I've interviewed many an author, and some are very structured and very linear. Others have written just words on a page, and the only reason there's numbers on the page, there's no chapters, nothing, is just so you can refer to it, of which page you want to be on. And it really doesn't matter nowadays, does it? Because it's like, for the reader, what is the reader getting out of this? and
Yes,
and we as readers can read things in different ways, because when we do, it takes us out of our norm and puts us in a different point of view in life. And anything that can make you look at something from a different angle, I think, is very good for us.
absolutely. I am. I am working on a children's series also.
Mm,
I have the three the book concepts down with covers. I just
hmm.
have to write the books. It's a a children's series, a chapter book series from the point of view of dogs at daycare, but it addresses issues that kids go through in school uh,
Love that. Oh,
with
oh, you have
friends.
to come back with
Yes.
that, most certainly.
Yeah,
Um,
it's
I,
fun.
I've interviewed stacks of children's authors, and one of them is, she always wanted to be a children's author, but his parents, no, no, go to school, get your education, and she became, I don't know, it was marketing or something like that. She was in a traffic jam, and this story came pouring out of it, and she didn't have enough paper to write it on, so she
What?
wrote it on her arm, and she's now a number one bestseller,
Okay.
children's author out there, because she let it out and followed the,
Yeah.
the path. Um, Kids, I have a 17-month-old grandson, and he's been read to almost from day one.
Yep.
And and it's just, sometimes, yes, the book gets picked up and thrown down on the floor. That's a baby for you, but it's he loves to be read to. He has to, you have to pick his moments, but he loves to be read to. And both of the parents are very much into the storytelling, and
Okay.
sparking an imagination where he's not understanding the words so much at that time, or the story, but they're instilling that beautiful storytelling ability that he will use as a rhythm in his life. And I think it's exceptionally important to
Yeah.
have children's books. The other scale of it is, as a parent and as a grandparent, reading these books to the children, it is like, ooh, ah,
Hmm.
and it's a totally different perception that it sparks in us as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I think the best advice I got when I was writing my first book was just pretend like nobody's going to read it. Just
Yeah.
pretend like it's for you. Like I used
Yes.
to play dolls in my room when I was
Yes.
for
Me too.
hours.
Yeah.
And I just so I that's what got me over that hump for my first book. What because I was writing like a romance scene in the first book and I had to stop. I was like, my father's gonna read this. My mother's gonna read this, my aunt's gonna read, my kids might read this. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna write it
Yes.
and I can change whatever I want to change later.
I
And
have somebody that used to be a host with me a number of years ago, and she's an affirmations and a motivator, type coach. And then I discovered later that she was very, very successful at erotica writing. And it's like, really? So if it's in there, let it out.
my father read it. He's read my first book and he said it was very tasteful. It was
That's
very
good.
tasteful. And then he said he cried. He cried knowing that his daughter wrote it. But
That's nice. That's
my
nice.
husband listens to the books on audiobooks.
Do
That's
you
what he
do
does.
the audio or somebody else audio it for you?
I have narrators that
Mm.
do my audiobooks. They're extremely talented.
Hmm.
Anne Marie Lewis and John York. They've done the first three and they're working on the fourth.
Nice, nice. You've really got it down. I mean, most certainly efficiency can be put in your title there. I mean, you started during COVID, 4 books, fifth one coming out, whole children's series planned out. You've already got an agent for this, and you've got audio people for that. So um, was this sheer luck in finding the right people, or was this your efficiency ability?
I think, I mean, maybe a little bit of everything. Efficiency, definitely. Um, Everything happens for a reason, right?
Yes.
So maybe not so much luck, but maybe I'm just feeling really blessed. But definitely networking.
Hmm.
Networking has been huge. Just
Yeah.
putting myself out there. I met Alan, the movie guy from I put my book on Readsy for reviews, and he wrote, "Have you ever considered adaptation?"
Mm.
And then I connected with him. And then just putting the book out there, I put my book out there for review on Kirkus, and that's how I met Brian, who's helped me with promo. He saw me out there, he reached out, and just networking and talking to other authors. We have a family friend who is on the USA Today bestseller list, and just taking advice
Picking
from
brains.
her.
Yes.
Yeah, just again, someone else has gone through it, so
Yeah,
why would I recreate the wheel? And she's
exactly.
like, spend your money on this, don't spend your money on this.
Exactly.
Got it.
Exactly. And I have an awful lot of people that I've interviewed that are the publishers that will tell people if you're going to self-publish, if you or people who are actually do publishing, and there's a reason why I do this. It gives people, well, I'm interested in this or I'm looking for that. There's a show on that, and that show is somebody who's
Right.
done it, been it, is it, and it can help you find it for yourself within you or what you need. But yeah, networking is very, very important. This is actually something that a lot of authors don't understand. You've written the book, oh, jolly D, but now you've got to get this baby out there.
Mm-hmm.
And that means podcasting, that means whatever book signing, that, whatever else you need to
Promo.
do. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you've got to do it. That work has been done. This is a totally different chapter. And if you're not willing to get out and do the work, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And, I went through a stage in my career where I was like, I just want to write the book. And
Yeah.
I was told by many people, that's not how this works.
No,
I said, okay.
even if you have a publisher, I mean,
Even
he
if you
had
have a
a
publisher.
renowned publisher back in the day. They would have set up events for him to go to. No, 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 you go do it on your own. And my brother is not a promoter. He writes brilliant books, but he's not a promoter. I've got him here, right here on the side. I'm promoting him. But he's not a
Good.
promoter himself. I've interviewed him and everything else, but he's not a networker or anything else like that. Um, and it's like this is how you have to do it nowadays.
Yeah.
It's not done for you. Where in the past it would be setting up various events, they would turn up, do it, and that would be it. Not like that anymore. Writing the book is one thing. Getting
Hmm.
it out there for people to read is a totally different journey.
Yeah. I'm the writer, I'm the publisher, I'm the marketing coordinator.
Yeah,
I'm
all
the
these different
publisher.
hats. Yeah,
Yeah. But
yeah,
it's
I know.
fun.
It
It's
can
really
make your
fun.
neck rather wobbly.
Yeah.
But meeting the right people at the right time, I mean, that's kind of, divine intervention.
Yeah.
That divine alignment is that when you are in rhythm, your books do need to get out there, and you've You set yourself up in the rhythm and writing it. So now taking that same rhythm and seeing it get out there, and then people pick up on that frequency, and that's why you're connecting with these people. That's why they're seeing what you're seeing, what you want to see, because you've set that frequency from which people to receive it. And then you just keep on with the frequency. Turn up the volume now and again, and let it go, right?
Yeah,
So
that momentum. I'm
yeah,
definitely riding the momentum, and I think I'm afraid to stop writing. I'm just gonna keep writing. Even if I don't publish them so close together, I'm not going to stop.
no.
Mhm.
And yeah, you've got this other book here, which kind of concludes the series, but the children's book series, most certainly. It is so needed. And the beauty of children's books is there's so many teachable moments through play, through fun, through connection, that, as I said, you're teaching the child to see something in a different way. But for the adult reading it, it's a reminder of
Yeah,
how to look at something. So it really does serve, both sides of the coin. And yeah, you can't, please, well, like, get your kids reading
yeah.
at a very early age, very early
Mhm.
age. So
I agree. Yeah.
even if it's just comic books, just get them reading. Right? We
Hmm.
don't want them just being on, on their phones or on games. There used to be thing that you went outside and play. Woo!
Yeah.
God,
Oh,
I
I know.
feel ancient.
My kids go to a summer camp and every summer, and there's no phones.
Right.
They're just outside, and it's such a nice reset.
Yes, exactly. And something, nature has always got the answers. Anytime you get stuck, go out to nature. It has a lovely nudge, nudge, wink, wink. I can put you back on track.
Hmm.
So, it's pay attention to what, if you get the writer's block, don't get all twisted and turned about it.
No,
It's just like, okay, fine, you're meant to pause at this moment because the next moment is very pivotal to the story. Don't try and force it. Nothing comes under force.
right.
Step back, go and do something totally different, and then it will come to you.
I love that. Absolutely. Yeah.
How do people get the books? How do people find you?
So I have a website. It's stacyleeauthor.com, STACYLEE author.com. You can click on the books on the website I think that will bring you directly to Amazon. They're on Amazon. It's the Nubble Light series. They're on iBooks and Barnes and Noble. And they're on Audible for audio as well as Apple. And then
Excellent.
if you're ever in Maine, they're in the gift shops in York and Agunquit and Wells. So they're on the shelves there where the book is set.
Wonderful. Well, of course, here all they have to do is go to selfdiscoverymedia.com and put in your name, Stacy Lee, and
Perfect.
and and all of your books come up here, and all your bio and everything else, and all of your links, your Instagram, your Twitter, your Facebook, the whole thing. Um, and I've said over and over again that COVID, although catastrophic for certain people in the sense of death and illness and loss of
Mhm.
business, everything. It was a time to reflect, a time to renew, and a time to redirect.
Yes,
And you clearly got that message.
I didn't. I had two kids on distance learning and some dogs, and it was, not a party, but I did. I said, you know what? This is the time to do this, and it's working out.
Yes, clearly.
Thank
So
you.
come back with the next book and tell us all about that. Please come back
Oh my
with
gosh.
with the
Yeah.
children books. I
Oh, I would love
definitely love
to.
that. I love the authors when they come back with the next chapter of their lives or the next direction of it, because just like your sequel of books, we want to keep the sequence going with the
Yes.
podcast as well.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so and please, folks, this is when the time is right for you to do something, when it's knocking at your door. And look, forget about the logistics, forget about, well, I have to do this or do that. When it's time, make the time. Follow that instinct, follow that path. You never know where it's going to go. 5 books with another series coming, all since COVID. Okay, now, no, you don't have to do the same thing. But the point is, she followed her path. And in doing so, the the whole vibration and frequency opened up for her, and look where it's leading her. And it can you too. Read the books, feel inspired by them, feel connected by them, and take the journey from one book to the next. because it takes you past, present, and future, which is wonderful. Thank you so much, Stacy, for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is great.
StacyLeeAuthor.com. You'll find everything there. And don't forget, folks, that a book can take you on your own personal journey like no other. And don't forget, books are the perfect gift to give at any time. Anytime. Don't wait for Christmas or birthdays. It can pick someone up when they're feeling down, or somebody just needs to de-stress. Just say, hey, come on, read the book. Let's talk about it afterwards. And it's a great gift to give. So until next time, folks, bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show. Find all of our shows on selfdiscoverymedia.com under podcasts or selfdiscoverymedia/shows. And for all our current shows, go to What's New. We are supported by you, the audience. You'll see a nice big shiny blue button for one-time donations, or follow us on Patreon and you will be able to support us there. We enjoy bringing you such wisdom. And the next show will be up in just a moment.